Get your investment apps out, call your broker, do whatever you got to do because we are buying stocks in who will rise in 2024. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But hey, guys, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Now, in a little bit, Justin Thind of 24/7 Sports will be joining us to talk about stock risers for the upcoming season. Also, what's next for Michigan State football recruiting. But hey, you know what? If you missed yesterday's show, that was also with Justin Thind too. So before we get to this chat, just wanted to plug that. And also, again, rate, review, subscribe, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. All right, you know everything by now. Let's go. That's right, folks. He came crawling back second day in a row. It is the one, the only Justin Thind of 24/7 Sports. JT, thank you so much. Hey, for kicking off your weekend with us here at Locked On Spartans, Absolutely. Just like all the viewers, all the listeners. And you are an investor yourself, JT. You are, if I can talk correctly, you're always neck deep in the stocks, the crypto, but we're going to talk something more important here. College football players here in East Lansing. So, point blank, this is one of the old tropes with talking head shows. It's stock up, stock down, whose stock you selling, but we're going to talk whose stock are you buying ahead of the season. Any listener of Locked On Spartans knows that. Well, on the offensive side of the ball, at least, we've got about, I think it's up to like 899 shares of Brennan Parachek's stock. We think he's going to be a really good player here. Kind of walk in the shadows of Jack Velling, of Luke Musgrave, of the guy that the Texans drafted, whose name I can never remember, that came from Oregon State. But nevertheless, there's a long lineage of tight end development under this staff. Former four-star kid, Brennan Parachek, is a very fluid athlete. You guys know the stories there. That's one guy that we are buying stock in. But JT, take us to church on the offensive side of the ball. If there's one or two or however many you think there should be on the offensive side of the ball, whose stock you purchasing right now at a low price?
Well, Matt, I guess you should have been more specific in the script because when you said stock up, stock down, I came in with fundamentals of NVIDIA and Micron Technology. So now those are no good.
Well, that's fine. We can regroup and we'll edit all this out. And
yeah. So now I guess kind of winging it, I have to go with my guy. I have to go with my guy, Karon Lynch Adams.
Hey now.
So I had high hopes for Jerick Broussard, the Colorado transfer, a couple seasons ago. I was wrong. That was one of my least ball knower moments of my time covering MSU. I thought it wasn't even a hot take because the guy was literally Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year.
Yes.
At the time when I was banging the drum, I almost felt like, all right, this is almost a lazy take that you're kind of being too loud about. And here it ended up being an insanely wrong take. Now, Karon Lynch Adams, I haven't been like pounding the table for him or anything, especially because I know Nathan Carter is good and he's going to have a great season. Yeah. And the volume's not going to be there for Lynch Adams to have a huge breakout season. So I have been mostly tempered, but I think he's better than the hype that he's had around him from the fan base since he committed. This is a guy that had decent numbers at, or I should say great numbers at a decent level at UMass. He was one of the best. I think Phil Steele, now I guess I don't know what this really means because all that's saying is he's better than a Notre Dame running back, but he was all independent, first team running back. And that was Audric Estime, I guess, that you would be putting him in that conversation against when you're giving out that honor for whatever it's worth.
Good call. Good callback. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So that's kind of the stature he comes in with. But if you watch the tape more so than the numbers, he's of the same mold as Nathan Carter. So you don't have to go ahead and have different packages for him or say, all right, well, he's boxed into this usage case of just being like somebody you throw swing passes to and stuff like that. No, he's a traditional one-cut running back between the tackles. He doesn't dance around. He's not indecisive. He hits the hole. He goes. I think you're just going to be able to rotate those guys in constantly, keep both of them fresh, and I think you're going to have a 1-2 punch. And again, it's not going to be a thunder and lightning 1-2 punch like sometimes you would think of duos in college football and the NFL, but it's more so of just two guys, same types, not a huge drop-off in my opinion, and you're just going to have a well-balanced attack there, and I think it's going to be a welcome sight to see.
I think a lot of older Spartan fans, and yeah, that's right. I'm roping us, and not you. You're like 18 years old, Justin. So I'm talking me, like the millennials here that remember the Javon Ringer, Jehu Colcrick of the Lightning and the Thunder. But it just like you said, it will not be that. It is Thunder on top of more Thunder, two of the same guys that have similar builds. But yeah, Karon Lynch Adams. I mean, if you listen to last week's episode, anyone out there with Hunter Stahl of Pro Football Focus, we said, all right, what skill position players do you think will catch our eyes? And it was immediately before we could even finish the question, Karon Lynch Adams. He graded so high over at UMass, and yes, first team all independent, so he beat out the 5 other running backs that could possibly even be named to that team, but not because of just lack of competition. He actually legitimately had a good season last year. You could look to the Auburn game last year, got 101 yards against the Tigers. I mean, that's pretty solid competition. So it is a solid running back that we can have high hopes in. We'll see what the split with Nate Carter will be this year. I've said maybe 50% Nate Carter, 40% Karon, and then 10% you could throw that all over the place to the other guys in that room.
Brandon Tullis season.
Sure, Brandon Tullis season back. So yeah, we'll see what we get as far as splits go, but nevertheless, it's going to be 2 strong running backs with a lot of production from those guys. Kind of going back to Jarek Broussard, when did you know that was not going to work out? Because is it just as easy as when he got detonated in the end zone at Washington, or did you let it linger for a little long before you really wrote him off? Okay, I
thought that was just a minor setback to a major comeback, but there was no major comeback, sadly.
That was tough. Because look, who can fault you for saying that? He was the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, but I mean, I'll edit all this out because this is just a very mean conversation. But is that the telltale sign that the COVID season was kind of just so Mickey Mouse? The fact that he won. Okay,
nothing.
It brings me no joy to say that. It brings me no joy to say that.
The only 2 things that count from the COVID season are Michigan's 2-win season or 3-win season or whatever it was, and LeBron's title. Other than that, nothing that happened during COVID in the sports realm counts.
Look, the Rocket Lombardi to Ricky White connection, that's the thing that certainly happened. You could erase everything else that happened in the COVID years, except for that. That was legitimate. Let it be known. Scream from the mountaintops. That's always going to be etched in the record book. Same with Antoine Simmons, just batting that ball down in the end zone. Oh God, just a glorious day. The only real time that year I actually smiled. So
and the Northwestern game that same year.
Good time, man. Only big wins that year. If we're gonna win, we're gonna do it against top 15 teams, right? That's it. What was that? You want us to beat Indiana or Iowa? No, please. Oh my God. But hey, if they got a ranking by their name, yeah, you best believe that we are gonna rock their world right now. God, great. Maybe it was great times. Oh man, the fog of war. Very very fuzzy memories, but the bits and parts you do remember. Great times here. Defensive side of the ball. Who you got? Because I feel like it's such a cop-out answer to say Quindarius Dunnigan or Wayne Matthews, because those guys were brought here because they are established players. I think the reason I'm barking those names out is because maybe for a lot of State fans, maybe the ones that don't have a sick relationship with this team and follow every single transfer in and out of the program might not know these guys, but that is certainly a name that people are going to know here in the near future. Are you going to go with a younger guy, another transfer, or on the defensive side of the ball? Give us your stock report, JT.
Well, the cop-out that I guess I have to avoid, because we already talked about him a ton in the other segment, was the fact that Alex Van Sumeren and Ben Roberts are coming on in camp. Those would be the guys.
Yeah,
if you're truly talking about where the stock started and where it is now, those guys have made tangible gains.
Yeah.
I guess one other name that comes to mind is Jordan Turner, who we talked about a bit.
Okay.
I'll be honest, maybe it's just stock up in my opinion that other people were high on him. When he got here from Wisconsin and I watched some of the tape and went back and watched some full games, I really was thinking they just got kind of another very limited guy like Cal Halliday, and I don't think he's better than him in any regard. I don't think this is really anything to be excited about. I guess if Cal goes down, you have another replacement, or if Turner won the job and Cal goes down, you have another, or vice versa. But I think he, in the most recent scrimmage, was very solid, it sounds like. And again, he's still limited in terms of what he can do, but I think he's much better at those things than I was anticipating him being when he got here. So I would say relative to when he committed to today, I would say his stock is up. Again, I need to emphasize, I don't think he's going to be great in coverage, but I think he's going to be better in non-coverage use cases than I was anticipating. And that's great then, because Wayne Matthews, I have high hopes for him. And now you suddenly got a lot of names there. And I guess even circling back to why I said Karon Lynch Adams, it wasn't just because I was high on him when he committed, but also because it sounds like in the scrimmage, he had a good showing. And this was despite the defensive line getting rave reviews and the linebackers getting rave reviews in that scrimmage. So by that logic, the offensive line must not have been moving people all over the place if that was the feedback on the defense. And yet he was still someone that multiple people told me looked good. So, so the scrimmages kind of have me thinking about stock up for Jordan Turner and Karon Lynch Adams, since I don't want to say AVS and Ben Roberts, who otherwise would have been my answers kind of for that answer.
Of course, more to come with our guy, Justin Thinn. But first, guys, need to talk about the number one app out there for your sports betting. We're talking FanDuel, guys. Of course we are. And, man, as the season is getting closer, we are just a smooth 2 weeks away from kickoff. Let's say you're already jonesing to get in on the action. Well, of course, do it over at FanDuel, because right now they have your Michigan State Spartans as 11.5-point favorites over the Owls of Florida Atlantic. If you are feeling spicy about our Spartans, you want to add a few little dollars, should Michigan State win that game by 12-plus points, hey, go ahead, do it over at FanDuel. They got so many lines out there, not just for college, not just for Michigan State, but also NFL too, guys. So, yes, if you want some football action in your life, FanDuel is the place to do it at. And you know what? Between now and then, all we got is preseason football, right? The Olympics are long gone. The playoffs are long gone. And the sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel is still keeping it going whenever we want. All we got to do is open up the app, dream up bets whenever we are in the mood. Because this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So just head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. It's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And of course, have to talk about home field apparel. Can't miss kickoff 2024 is well underway. Guys, if you missed their platinum box drop for Michigan State, they might have a few more laying around, but those were exclusive items. It was an exclusive long sleeve t-shirt, a hoodie, a t-shirt, a hat, some socks. Man, home field is the best place to start the college football season. I've now made it a tradition to buy a few things off their site because for a few reasons. It's the most comfortable clothing you will ever put on. It is like an angel is hugging your body. So when you go to Spartan Stadium or you just want to sit on your couch and watch these games, do it in comfort and also do it in style. Home field is all about the vintage apparel lineup. I'm rocking my 1988 Rose Bowl Champs t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt, that is. Guys, their designs are exquisite, not just for Michigan State. I also got, no, don't tell anyone this. I have an Arizona State shirt, a Miami shirt. Like, they got some great schools. Going over to homefieldapparel.com and also use code ONSPARTANS. All one word, on Spartans. That's going to save you 15% off your first order over at homefieldapparel.com. Now, before being joined by Justin Thinn for another great chat, hey, folks, thank you so much for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. Now, go make your second listen Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. He's going to get you ready. He already has this offseason, conference realignment, NILs, that just ever-changing landscape of college athletics. But, guys, Week 0 is next week. Spencer's going to get you ready. After that, it's Week 1. Spencer's going to get you ready. So, yes, after Locked On Spartans, go check out Locked On College Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A lot of good names, though. And, I also go towards, the backup realm, too. Like, Armarion Smith, a guy that came along really well last year as a redshirt freshman, transfer from Cincinnati, of course. Khalil Majid, too, although I think he was seen last week with his leg and some apparatus. So we'll see if that's, a short-term thing. We'll see if that's, a Michigan State basketball. Everyone has to spend at least 1 week in a walking boot for their scholarship to count sort of thing. But we will see if he sees the field or how healthy he is. But I thought in a backup role last year, both of those guys, came along pretty well at the end of last season. Certainly no shortage of experience for either of those guys at the end of last season. So, while they might not be starters this year, I think that those are, beyond serviceable backups that you can bring out on the field, both Definitely. Of those guys. Any freshman on either side of the ball you think is going to have an instant impact whose name doesn't, sound like Schmick, Blarsch? Anyone outside of the phenom receiver you think can find the field early as a freshman, in your opinion?
I think there's some guys that you'll see. I don't know if they'll go over their 4-game minimum, but I think there's some guys that you might start to hear about as maybe practices go on that they're playing well. Like maybe an Andrew Brinson or somebody like that might be somebody that could start as a redshirt sophomore or something like that, and you start to hear him make waves in practice. But in terms of actual gameplay, I think mostly because you're looking at a season where your ceiling is maybe 7 wins. They're not going to want to burn a lot of these guys as eligibility. I think the only ones where they might be forced to is Brandon Tullis, because right now he's RB3. And then Mike Schenbieler, who's probably going to be like in that third team defensive tackle rotation. Actually, they might be able to avoid doing that, I guess, if guys stay healthy and if the third team is kind of Jalen Satchel and Raquan Buckley. But I would say for the most part, they're going to try not to go ahead and have guys go over the 4-game limit, just because it's going to be more important for them to be contributing in 2027 or 8 or however the math shakes out for their 5th year from now versus them playing an extra 1 or 2 games this year as true freshmen. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I find the Brady Pretzloff thing interesting too, because, linebacker on 3 even had rated as a 4-star, very talented kid, but there's such a backlog at that linebacker group. Well, yes, he is like physically there. He's ready to play. He's 6'3", scraping 230. Like, yes, he will add 5 to 10 pounds later on in his career, I would assume, but like, talented kid. Hey, he had an interception last weekend at the scrimmage. How fun was that? But yeah, like, that's another one. I don't know if he's going to go over that 4-game total, but God, just when you talk about 4-game totals and actually structuring it to be in accordance with the expectations of your season, preserving the eligibility, man, that's what I'm excited for this staff. I hope they are a little more dialed in and clean with who's eligible, who do we want to burn up, and how are we going to use these 4 games appropriately before they hit their red shirt. Not trying to get hung up on last season again, JT. I've been trying to work myself off of last year, but my God, that Sam Levitt situation is just forever seared into my brain of how horrendously that was handled. My God.
Who was the guy that the D'Antonio staff mismanaged their very last year? Was it Devontae Dobbs or was it somebody else? There was some guy that played in 5 games, and there was zero reason for them to play in the 5th game. And I think in that game, they only played like 2 drives or something. I'm not the only one making this up, right? Like,
no, you're not. I just can't give you the name right now. I'm so sorry. You handcuffed me there.
No, as long as that happened, that's all I wanted to make sure. It doesn't matter who, I guess. But yes, no, it would be ideal if something like that does not occur. That would be great.
Yeah, I barked out Julian Barnett. That's not the guy. He played in all 13 games as a freshman. So it's someone else out there. Guys, if you know the answer, if you know that me and JT just aren't making up stories in our own head, comment below on YouTube or reach out, lockedonspartans@gmail.com to give us some peace of mind right here and let us know that we are not going crazy. God, there goes the rest of my day. I'll be combing that depth chart now in roster back in 2019 to see who indeed that was. So, oh man, great time. So yeah, hopefully it's a little more tighter around the eligibility and using the 4 games correctly here for the young guys. Speaking of young guys, recruiting. Now what? Like, you know what? They got a really, really strong pickup guy from the West Coast. It is a fantastic get for Coach Meat, LaRue Zamorano. I should say the guy's name, of course. But since then, kind of quiet. Expectedly so. I don't think that there were a lot of fireworks expected after that. But I guess just now what for the staff? Is it just wait until flip season in the middle of October and November, or now what, JT?
Well, yeah, so the key to remember with this staff is their evaluation skills. And a lot of the way that you separate yourself as a staff from other staffs around the country is figuring out the senior year late risers. So if you're able to get a core of, I believe they have 15 commits right now, right? Or is it 14?
I believe so. I'll look that up. Yeah. I think it is 15.
So you're looking at a situation where the foundation of your class is already established, and now you have the opportunity to fill the final 5 to 6 spots. I'd be shocked if it took more than 21 guys, maybe 22. 22 is probably where I would say would make sense to stop it at. But you're in a spot where the last few handful of spots you're going to use, you can go ahead and now really separate yourself from a scouting perspective and go find those senior year late risers, because there's not really any chance that you're going to go and uncover someone off of their junior year tape now in August that every school in the country hasn't already figured out is an underrated gem. You would have already done that by now. So either A, you try to flip some guys that are committed elsewhere, like a Nakai Wynn at Rutgers, who they're going to keep trying, and things like that. But for the most part, you're going to want to be hosting guys in senior year after you identify the guys early on that are good. And as the course of the fall proceeds, you'd want to maybe get some guys in the fold, a couple guys maybe just before signing day, before the season ends, after some successful game day visits, and then another 2-3 guys on signing day, I would say. And that's how I would pace it for the rest of the year here.
16 commits right now. So that's where we're at right now. So I should know that.
So 5 to 6 more.
Little more to come with Justin Thin of 24/7 Sports, but guys, got to take a break to talk about Gametime, my favorite ticketing app out there. Earlier this week, talked about how much money they can save you. Yesterday's show, we talked about, hey, you know what? Say you lose your job, they're going to refund you immediately. Let's say you find better seats or, a better price for seats in the same area. They're going to credit you 110%. Gametime just makes it so simple, whether it's saving money, whether it's knowing that they have your back as a person. And guys, let's talk to people that don't know a thing about technology. People like myself. All right, how aggravating can it get to use a ticketing app, or you buy the tickets and then, my goodness gracious, well, now where are they? Like, where the tickets go? Are they going to get sent to my email? I'm outside of a stadium where I have one bar of 3G service and nothing is loading. This is the worst experience I've ever had. Well, that's why you got to use Gametime, because guys, it is so simple. Not only are you going to get a picture of your actual seats when you're perusing tickets, like as if that experience isn't easy enough, when you buy them in just 2 taps, bang, zapped straight to your phone. Like, it is so painless with Gametime. The entire process, I cannot recommend Gametime enough. I mean, they probably don't even want me to say this, but even if Gametime wasn't a partner anymore, like, I'd still use them all the time. Like, they are truly the greatest ticketing app out there. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying tickets this upcoming season. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. That is all good to know, kind of just like in a holding pattern, wait and see, trust the staff's eyeball for, diamonds in the rough, which we're going to get to in a hot second. I want to get your pick for your diamond in the rough for this class. But first, let's rewind the clock back a little bit to that LaRue Zamorano, because you know what? He's an early visitor to Michigan State. That's great. That's an awesome start. And then the wind starts to blow towards Washington's direction. Honestly, I like to be upfront. Like, I kind of just wrote that off. I kind of just gave up and said, well, yeah, he's going to stay in the West Coast. Okay, well, that's a bummer.
I put in a crystal ball for him to go to Washington.
Yeah, see, what happened? How this happened?
Basically, he told people that he was going to commit to Washington on the visit if the visit was good. The visit was good, and I think he gave a silent verbal. And then another week passed, another 10 days passed. He hasn't announced by then. And it's 4th of July weekend when we hear that he instead has now switched his silent verbal to Michigan State. And I don't know necessarily if Washington at that point gave up or if they continued working on him, but I know he didn't go public for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
After that, either way, Michigan State, when they got him to flip silently on the 4th of July, they were able to keep that until the day he went public. So I think it was a massive win. Washington wanted him badly at the time of his visit. I know they went ahead and they got somebody else in that stretch between the 4th of July when he flipped to Michigan State and when he went public. So at that point, they went elsewhere with their second choice and they took him instead. And then they had no room. But at the moment that LaRue switched his commitment behind the scenes, and it was just a straight up win by Coach Meat. And he's been everything that MSU has wanted and more ever since they hired him finally.
That's strong. And so right now, of course, it's 16 commits. Right now in 24/7 Sports, the composite, all 3 stars. So it's all about finding the diamonds in the rough. Of course, this staff is known to be developers of talent. Like that's the whole end game for this staff. It will be this year. Hopefully, the recruiting rankings for the team rankings, that is, and individual players picks up in the next few years. But right now, with where Michigan State's at, the new staff, you got to make inroads regionally. This is just the fact of the matter. This is where the class is. All right, you guys know the whole song and dance if you've even listened to a single episode this offseason. We have just talked ourselves in circles about recruiting. But with that said, JT, no shortage of 3 stars to pick from. Do you have a diamond in the rough for this class? Or are you going to steal mine? Who is one Braylon Collier down in Sandusky, Ohio? That's a guy that I have a lot of stock in right now. Or are you going to go a different direction here?
I am, yes. I do think he's good. But the way that I looked at this question was, well, who's ranked the most far off from what I think they should be? And I have 2 names for that, but these 2 are not my answer to your question. But Aiden West, cornerback from Gaithersburg, Maryland, and Drew Nichols, the offensive lineman from Murrieta, California. Both of those guys by 24/7 7 Sports rated as 86s. They're the 2 lowest ranked kids in the class. And even the guy right above them, Emmett Bork, another 86, his tape is not of an 86. So their 3 lowest ranked kids in the class, I think, should be rated much higher. And I guess like people would say, all right, well, somebody has to be the 3 lowest rated kids in the class. I'm not going to publicly say who I think that should be. That's kind of
that'd be a little mean
for a 16-year-old. But I'll tell you that I can come up with other guys that should have that honor, and it shouldn't be these 3. So I'm not just blindly being biased and hyping everyone up across the board. And I would say to answer your question though, who I think I'm like the biggest believer in stock-wise long-term, Derek Simmons, the Frankenmuth defensive tackle. He is in many ways mirroring what Alex Van Sumerman. Now we'll see what AVS becomes, but Alex Van Sumerman in the same way was a guy that was big but very explosive for a defensive tackle, and that's exactly what Derek Simmons is like. And Alan True has been raving about him ever since Michigan State started recruiting him, saying that he thinks this kid's going to be very good. So he's playing in that middle of Michigan sort of Frankenmuth area. Obviously AVS was further north, but poor competition and a defensive tackle from like the middle of Michigan. Like that's the AVS mold. Now Van Sumerman ended up being a 4-star, so he wasn't fully underrated by the end of the process. We'll see where Derek Simmons goes. I know Alan was saying that he hasn't gotten a chance to watch him in person yet so far, and he's going to make that a priority this upcoming fall because it's kind of in a different area that's not really in like the mainstream flow of where Alan would hit the games. So that kind of factors in, but he'll do that this time. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up a 4-star, and I think he's 6'3", 270, and I don't think any of it is bad weight, and he can add even more muscle, and I think he's going to be very explosive at the next level.
He just reminds me so much of just like, kind of the Derek Harmon arc right here. Like, of course, hopefully that his career ends at Michigan State and doesn't go out west to, chase the bag. Rightfully so, go get your money, Mr. Harmon. But when you watch the film, it's very reminiscent of, kind of the whole Derek Harmon recruiting. And, your colleague, Stephen Brooks, a great friend of this show, he was on the Derek Harmon hype train before anyone else, kind of for the same reasons that Derek Simmons is getting a lot of people on his hype train. Like, it is a mean streak when you see him play. There's not a lot of bad weight, if any, on this kid. And, just like Derek Harmon, yes, of course, talented athletes come out of Detroit a lot. They don't come out of Detroit Loyola, though. Like, that's a lower division school, just kind of like how Frankenmuth in the lower divisions. I think they're in the 4-5-ish region. But nevertheless, not really flying above the radar here. Like that is certainly a diamond in the rough find. So I do love the Derek Simmons pick over there. Yeah,
the Harmon thing was extra interesting because it was during COVID, so people couldn't go and evaluate him at his new weight because the last time people saw him, he was significantly overweight. So then he kind of shaved a lot of that. And like you're saying, playing at Detroit Loyola. So the tape isn't a great reflection of it because, of course, he'd be moving people.
He's playing against kids like me out there, just I'm playing offensive guard. And so of course he looks good, but get him in camps. Okay, decent.
Yeah, that was a good find by the last staff to follow up their, I think that was their second commitment after Davion Prim.
God, great. So, wow. Nice time capsule. Good callback. Look at you. JT, you already have a good weekend ahead. We are 2 weeks away from kickoff. Are we feeling it right now? Are we ready to get into this weekend with football on the horizon?
Yeah, I can't wait. I was watching Rams, Cowboys, and Colts versus whoever they played yesterday in the preseason, just to feel something, just to see a holding call derail someone's drive, just to see a defensive back not turn around and locate the ball in time, even though they could have had an interception and instead got mossed. So it's so close. And today I might go back and watch some Minnesota games to see Joe Rossi's defense in action. And a couple weeks ago, I was watching old Oregon State games to see Brian Lindgren in action. So I'm just finding ways to force feed football to my, I guess, daily lives since we're still 3 weeks away.
It was last Friday. I had a half hour to kill, so I was like, I'm going to rewatch the Minnesota-Michigan State game last year. And boy, did I feel disgusting about it. But you know what? For the love of the game, baby, that's what we do. Get any tidbit of information that we possibly can going into the season. So, JT, can't thank you enough over the last 2 days for all the tidbits that you dropped on us here. And thank you so much for your time. Always a great time talking with you. So anything you want to plug here before we let you go and enjoy your weekend coming up?
I don't. Just obviously everyone knows most of my work is at SpartanTailgate.com. So if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you go ahead and do that. And I guess also the Twitter feed as well. But like I said, almost all the work is instead on the site, not really on Twitter. But
That's right.
Feel free to interact on there. So thanks for having me, Matt. Fun as always.
Dude, you're the best, JT. Until next time, folks, hey, have yourself a great weekend. Let's mix in a water, all right? I know we're all excited for game day coming up here, but let's take care of ourselves. Can't get to game day if we're not being healthy this weekend. So, hey, let's take care of ourselves. Love you all. Go Green.